Hello, welcome back to the Onvermel report. Today I'm going to be making the system-based Hordika figures a whole lot better. It's really without a whole lot of extra effort for the most part. So we all remember these nice little game pieces from the system sets. These monochrome, basic color figures. And yeah, they're really not that great. They're really not the greatest sort of figure out there ever. However, they can look a lot better, and that's what I'm going to do here today. Starting with, because we're going to be painting them. Well, like me, there's not really a we, royal we. So, starting with some acrylic paint, some nice, this one's called slate, I guess. I don't know if that's common. I don't know. Oh, I was going to preface, I am not, painting is not a hobby of mine. I am not a expert painting. I do not know how to keep my brushes in good condition or anything. So if everyone gets complained about how my brushes look really old and used or whatever, I apologize. But what can I say? It's just a extension of the Lego hobby, a necessity, if you will. So we just get a bit of that. Because now, basically the big thing is to make sure you get the sockets areas on this figure to match what the actual set had, which will take a little bit. Got to be a little bit gentle with it. So I always like to start with the legs with these guys, just because they're one of the hardest areas to reach. And at times I don't have the steadiest of hands when it comes down to this sort of thing, but you know, like I say, Lego's my hobby and not painting. So now, could I keep better condition of my paintbrushes? Very possible. Luckily enough, with acrylic paint, if I do over paint somewhere I don't want to, it's very easy to peel off and scrape off, so it's not the biggest of worries. I think I need to do... There, I think that's his first upper leg done. Now I try to get into his other leg. Just right there. Now, unfortunately, where all the joints and seams and lines don't technically fully match the full-scale figures, but as long as I get close enough. That's roughly where it should be. I need to get a better brush. Oh well, we'll see how well this works. If I regret it, that's on me. Now, I need to get the spinner launcher area just a little bit. Like I said, with the acrylic paint, I don't mind being a little bit messy because I can easily scrape that off once it dries. So, yeah. Now, I do want to get into the head or the neck of them. There, now we got neck done. And the only really big spot that needs to be dark gray are the ankles and the hands. So, do the ankles first. Out of the way. What I need to do is actually get rid of some of these extra strands. Okay, now we got those done, and then we can get to the hand on this metal. Yeah, the first time I got these little figurines, I got, don't think it was 2000 directly. I got Tower of Toa basically later than it was after its initial release for Christmas for my parents. So it's not like I had, I would say, a strong connection to these guys or love them. But I've had them for a long time, and you know, definitely nostalgia for them to some degree. Although when someone I first saw a comment referred to them as board game pieces, I was like, yeah, that's a very accurate way to describe these figurines. There we go. Let's touch that up there. Okay, so all the dark gray that was been painted on him. So we can keep him to the side, and yeah, we'll work on to the next one. Now, it hasn't fully dried yet, but what I usually do to make sure I peel off the panes is get something that has like a nice pointy metal tip, like just one of these guys, and that way I can get real and close, you know, and I can just pick away where I want to. Sorry, my aiming the camera's a little bit off. And just being really gentle with the touch-ups. And you can see when it's nice and decently soft, I can just peel off really. I mean, it's acrylic paint, so it's not like it's going to be the hardest stuff to get off, honestly. Now, of course, there's always the problem that if you scrape too hard, you get some of the actual green paint off. Now, with areas down at the feet, we're not going to worry about scraping that off because I don't really. That's going to get covered up by some silver, which we'll be doing once we're after this. But getting into underneath his head, that's where we're going to get into spend a little bit of time with. Just scraping it off a little bit then and there. Yeah. Put the camera as well as I can see this. Honestly, sometimes just taking my finger to it too is all that it really needs. And it's a little bit. Yeah, just getting a little bit of that out of the neck. See back there we have. Now, in fairness, some of this does show up on camera a bit better than it does in person, just because of the bright light. So, and it's also the bottom side of his head. So honestly, some of this you would never know unless I told you. So, which is fine. So once we get, I think that's majority of what I want off the head. Although I'm thinking, no. He's got a little bit too much on his neck. So, you know, just gently scraping away around there. There we go. Back. Oh, right. Yeah, he's got his whole back of the neck section that I need to get rid of. Put that down. Clear off the thumbtack a little bit. And, you know, do just a little bit more of that. There, it's pretty much cleaned off his back necker. And just take another look at the back to make sure I didn't miss anything there. Yeah, there's a little bit still down here. It's not the perfect back paint job, but it's good enough. Now the ankles, I did get a little bit on his upper leg there. So we seem to. Okay, then I think his leg was the last spot that really needed a touch up. Just that back of his knee. There we go. There, the dark gray on him is done. That's too much on the legs. Shoot. Ah, okay, I can scrape them off. Okay, and that's pretty much the last part you really need the brush for. So typical cleaning brush. Got to do that next. Which means in the next two, I'll just have to scrape off the paint, especially a lot more in Nuju because I definitely was a little impatient having used brushes that I have not taken very much good care of. Did not help either with the painting. So once I get the paint all dealt, the acrylic paint all dealt with, we'll move on to the next section. Okay, now that all the paint has dried, we can now move on to the second part of coloring the guys, and that's getting the silver in. Now, I like to use one of these extreme fine metallic ink markers. That's what I always use, and it works fine for me. So just making sure it's shaken up and ready to go. Now let's, I guess, start with Nuju here, just getting a little bit of the ink flowing. And basically we're just going to ink in basically the parts of the figure where it should be the pearl silver armor. Which why in some cases, depending where you leave some of the paint, is not really a big problem because it's going to be covered up with the silver. So now this one definitely is not as fine as it used to be because I've used it a fair bit, so it's definitely running low on some of the ink, and I think just the tip at the end is not as fine as it once was, but it'll work for the time being for my needs. There we got the chest. Pretty much there's only really three sections: the chest, the leg armor, and then the feet. So, because for the most part, Hordika don't have a whole lot of silver on them. Big chunk of the silver is really just like on their weapons and what's it called, the spinners. But of course, these figures are too small for spinners, so we don't have to worry about those at all. Now, maneuvering yourself to get to the some of these armor pieces is a bit of a pain sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. That's why it's lucky that for the most part this stuff's quite liquid, so it kind of flows. Well, usually, like I said, I think this one's a bit older. I might have to pop open my other one possibly for the later part of film, hopefully. the lid back on before this starts spilling everywhere. Now, unfortunately for him, I did spill a little bit over there, so hopefully I might be able to just... Yeah, this stuff doesn't scrape off nearly as nicely. Fortunately, I think I've discovered that with the previous one, so I guess that's kind of the caveat, is just make sure that, because this is, you know, very drippy ink, to not spill it while it's doing this part of it. So a fine steady hand I do not at times. That's just them. Got silver in his arms. I guess that's what we get for using this ball. That's kind of problem with this sometimes is like, oh, that is ink there. I'll have to do some cleaning up on these guys a bit later, perhaps. Alright, now we wait for that silver to dry, and then we have just one little bit left to do, and that's the eyes. Now, for also the eyes, you'll just need different paints for whatever color you want. So, for any Nuju, I'm just going to be using this blue because I can't be bothered to find 2 different shades of blue for them equally, and then red paint, just Tuscan red, actually will work perfect. Now we need very, very little of it. Because for these, I'm going to use the fine tip of this little guy to get into the eyes. Now my towel is actually a little bit weird because unlike a lot of the others who have very noticeable eye slots, he didn't quite do that for Matau. He just kind of has, you know, the ridges where he's supposed to have the eyes, so it makes it a little bit more difficult, but not too bad. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the red and dip it in. When I said you don't need much of it all, you really do not need a lot. Just enough to get the bit of red in his eyes. And of course, with this being acrylic paint, if you do go a little overboard with it, again, very easily to peel out, like how his head is right now. I guarantee I'm going to be taking care of some of that in a bit, but for the time being, it seems to be okay. I'll need a little bit more paint on. Try and get over top the ridges. Kind of just dispersing it as I go. Make sure the back end looks good. Okay, we're going to put him to the side and let him hopefully dry off in the eyes. Another color paint, the blue for the other guys. It may not be a perfect match for them, but honestly, it's close enough and good enough that... Also with the... I don't want to go too dark on Neville just because I feel like it would blend in too much to his colors, so having a slightly brighter blue than maybe he canonically has, in my opinion, is not the worst thing in the world. And you kind of got to get a glob so you can kind of just drop it in there. So sometimes... Oh, there we go. Now we're getting the blue in there. Like I said, it's brighter shade than he's supposed to have. But this is one particular case where I'm okay with that. And if I ever want to make it darker, I'm sure I could just paint over it, but... Again, perhaps a little much, but that means it can just be taken out later. Now you may be wondering, why am I only doing 3 Hordika? Surely getting all 6 would not be that hard to acquire. And you would be right, all 6 were very easy to acquire. In fact, I own multiple copies of everyone. I have like 3 of the sets they come with, so I have like over 3 I have like 5, 6 copies of each figs. But I don't modify copies of sets, so I have extra ones that I decided to do. And I actually already did the Kama, no Kama, and almost all of one new already. I just didn't feel like showing anyone until after I was done. Or we just let that finish off, and then once everyone's hopefully dried off, we can... let's just make sure his eyes look good. It's actually a really good looking eye. So now that's red paint on red paint, it should stick out just a little bit more. Alright, that should be enough, so we'll just put him to the side. And then yeah, once they're all dry, then we'll take that final look at them. And alrighty then, these guys are more or less officially done, and I do think, especially looking at Matau here, that the added colors really just makes them look so much better than their original versions. Yes, I do still have a little bit of silver there. That was a little bit of me just being impatient and being a little bit, like I said, I mean, I've done better. Like, when I did just silver originally, I was my original go-to. But it was a little bit later that I realized I could do the dark blade kind of color. So, I mean, if I really want to redo it, these guys are dirt cheap to get. Then I have a bunch of them, so, you know. Or I could put the dark gray on top of this and risk getting the silver, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, no, so that now means I have all 6, so there's the other ones that I had done ahead of time, and I mean, just look at that. Like, the camera was probably the one I did the best, and it's peering old green eyes with the shiny silver on the dark blade with the dark red. It looks so good. It just looks exactly what I think they should have. If they're going to do the One Piece figures, this is really what they should have looked like. And I do think that the Kama Matau do look the most, look the best, which I think is appropriate because, you know, these are, I would say, the characters who had the most development during that arc, especially at least in the movie itself. So, you know, yeah, that is how I made them look a bit cooler. Hope you guys liked the video, and, you know, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and, well, I'm retiring from the night.